Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome to Aura's In Conversation series. For today's episode, we have with us Dr. Shahinamol AK. I welcome you, ma'am. Dr. Shahinamol AK she has done her MA, NET, and PhD. She is currently assistant professor and head of Department of English in KAHM Unity Women's College, Manjeri, Kerala. So today's episode is going to be centered around Palestinian art and culture. So I welcome you, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for connecting here.
Thank you, ma'am, for joining us today. So tell us a little bit about your academic background and research, particularly your focus on art and culture.
As you have already mentioned, I'm a faculty and head of the Department of English at Postgraduate and Research Department of English at Korampel Ahmad Kaji Memorial Unity Women's College, Manjeri. It is a college situated in the district of Malappuram at Kerala State in India. Yeah, my teaching career has actually started from 2008 onwards in the same institution. And I was a student of the same institution in the Department of English. And my research interest basically, particularly, I'm interested in the global literatures in general rather than the national level literatures. So my interest was on Middle East literatures as well as post-colonial African American as well as Australian literatures were there. But for my research, actually, I have particularly focused on the Middle East writings, especially women writings, Middle East women writings. And my focus for the PhD was Middle East women narratives. So I had taken women writers from, particularly based on Palestine, as well as from Israel, Lebanon, and some of the Palestinian writers who are diasporic writers living in America as well as in some other part of the world. And as you have asked something about the art and literature, my uh, research degree was particularly on the literature of women writers based in various Middle Eastern countries or West Asian countries. And I had focused on the narrative side and especially memoirs as well as tweet writings and blog writings of women writers, focusing on their conditions of fugitivity, their day-to-day lives, everyday life, and all these things. And as you have mentioned something about the art and literature and culture, what I have felt is on the basis of my literatures as well as my researchers, on the basis of my researchers as well as my studies in particularly art and culture of Palestinian writings, what I have found is we do tell stories often. We do tell stories, and particularly Palestinian women writers and Palestinian writers in general, not only women writers. I had focused the women writers for my uh, PhD, but at the same time, my interest falls in art, literature, culture, especially visual culture, all these kind of cultural as well as artistic productions of writers from these areas, especially West Asian countries. But the focus was purely given to the Palestinian writers, but Palestinian writers located in various other countries as well as in the occupied territories of Palestine, West Bank, Gaza, Ramallah, East Jerusalem, Jaffa, in all these areas. And what I have found this, as I've mentioned, we do tell stories, but Palestinians, they don't tell stories. They tell the stories of occupation, confrontation with Israeli military agencies, and uh, uh, and for them, telling stories is a means of existence. Telling stories is a means of cultural resistance. So for them, art, I have found that unlike the other people all around the world, what I have found is for them, art is actually a means of a kind of existence, resistance, and essence, and through the form of art, through the form of their artistic as well as cultural and visual productions. So they do tell us the stories in order to tell us that we do exist, and in order to preserve their memories, in order to preserve their original histories, not the stolen histories, not the forbidden histories. So for them, art is a powerful vehicle of thought of their own existence itself, and through that they create their essence. Maybe for any artist, or maybe for any literary person, or any a cultural performer, definitely their life, their experience, their day-to-day life itself is a powerful raw material for their artistic work as well as for their cultural and literary productions. But there is a significant change when a Palestinian woman, or Palestinian youth, or Palestinian men, when they do with life, when they do with their art, then when they work with their culture, when they work with their literary works. And definitely the difference is that for them, it is actually a powerful means of existence to tell the world that we do exist. We do exist. We do, yeah, we do resist through the form of their artistic work. And my focus for one of the papers that I had presented in the University of Manchester for a 2-day international conference was particularly the graffiti, particularly produced artistic work called graffiti. And what they are doing is they are creating their graffiti all over the walls, maybe in the refugee walls of the refugee camps, walls of certain kinds of stone walls, certain kinds of other maybe brick walls and all. And my focus was for this research paper was the graffiti that they have been creating on the Israeli separation wall. Israel has created a huge wall running around 708 kilometers in length as well as 8 meters in height. And this wall is particularly created by Israel as an apartheid wall, and for them, it is a means of security. They are creating some false notions of security challenge, and what they have created this wall, annexing the land of West Bank, annexing 9.4% of the land of the West Bank, and it creates a kind of huge blockade in the life of Palestinians. For them, their means of existence, their everyday activity, their mobility, their access to education, their access to even water, their access to their kith and kin, and everything has been curtailed. And we can understand, we can see that just around the wall, this apartheid wall or this separation wall, there is there are 550 checkpoints, Israeli military checkpoints are there. So from the very fact itself, we can understand that how far the life of every Palestinian will be collapsed by simply a separation wall, a huge security wall created by Israel. So this is the reality, a gray wall. Anybody can see that, and even digitally you can see that. But what Palestinians are doing, they don't have any kind of option, so they cannot destruct the wall. It is impossible for them. So what they do is they are artistically beautifying the walls. They are doing a kind of beautification of the wall. Beautification in the sense they are creating graffiti on the walls. When they create graffiti on the wall, it has an essence because they want to tell that we cannot destruct the wall. There is a particular writer based in Gaza. Her name is Rawan Yagi. So she's a young woman writer. What does she do is she says in one of her stories titled A Wall, and she says that while I was walking, I could see the wall. I can't do anything. I just looked at the wall. I pushed the wall. I pushed the wall with my hands, even if it is of no use. So there are some kinds of literary narrations about the war, and we can see that in many of the stories as well as in Palestinian writings. War is a very recurring kind of image, or war is a recurring metaphor, and there is a particular imagery created by most of the writers. Now, when we come to the graffiti as an artistic production or a visual cultural uh, form of resistance, they are trying to create their history and the replication of their everyday life through these kinds of graffitis. And they are producing these graffiti to tell the world that we do exist.
Yeah.
We do exist. We have though the gray wall has been created by Palestinians to block us, we are overcoming that. Oh, we are in a way refashioning the world with our creativity, with our art. And through this art, we are trying to say the world that we need existence. We need to tell the world that we do exist. So they are creating their stories. They are creating their memories on that. They are refashioning the wall into their everyday life. They are even creating certain kinds of slogans on the wall. And there are paintings of olive trees on the wall. There are doves on the wall. So through even the act of creating graffiti is prohibited by Israeli military forces. And if they're always blackening the wall. So military forces are associated with blackening the graffiti. But every day, maybe in the night or maybe in some other time, they do create these graffiti. So for them, even the act of graffiti is actually a political kind of representation. They are politically participating in the means, in the Palestinian cause, so that for them it is a means of existence. For them, it is a kind of compulsory act. So through their graffiti, what I have found that since I'm speaking about graffiti because it is a very powerful mode of visual art for them. It is a powerful mode of cultural production for them. It is a very powerful mode of. It's a very powerful part of the cultural landscape of West Bank itself or Palestine itself. So for them, what I have found that they are when the spaces are limited or when there is a block created by Israeli authority, Jewish Zionist military forces, what Palestinians instead do is they are creating their graffiti to overcome the kind of blockades created by the Israeli authority. So definitely, as I have already mentioned, as you have questioned, art, then cultural productions, literary productions, a lot of murals, paintings. These are some ways of their artistic, literary, and cultural modes of existence for them. So it is one of the very powerful vehicles of thoughts and human expressions that one cannot deny. Even the world cannot deny these kinds of Palestinian artistic productions.
Yeah, and as you mentioned about war being a common theme in all of their different literary as well as artistic productions, so have like have these themes or the overall themes have they changed or have they been reshaped over the years with the changing dimensions of the conflict?
All right. Your observation is correct. There are changes. When we observe, I'm not particularly speaking on the artistic productions only, even the cultural productions. When we take literary productions or the culture in general, the cultural productions, including the artistic productions, we can see that there are changes over the time. And historically speaking, as everyone understands, there was British mandate period until 1920s, and afterwards there were until 1948. There is from 1920s to 1948, historically speaking, the period of Palestine, the geographical, political, cultural existence of Palestine is very important, significant. And 1948 marked the historical Nakba or the catastrophe of Palestine. So when we understand the artistic and cultural productions of Palestinians in a pre-Nakba period, maybe during the British Mandate period, or in a pre-Nakba period and in the post-Nakba period, one can understand that there are changes in the artistic and cultural productions also. And during the 1920s to 48, when we speak about their cultural as well as literary engagement, we can see that poetry was one of the very powerful means of human expressions for them. For poetry was instead the vehicle of their thought. So there were some nationalistic kind of messages. There was some motivational kind of or poetry created in order to inspire people, and there are different kinds of poetry created by people during those periods. But during 1948, as we have seen, a very historic kind of catastrophe in Nakba, around 7 lakh 20,000 people had to flee from Palestine in a single night itself. So that has marked a very significant change, instead a very powerful kind of change in the artistic and cultural production of Palestinians themselves. The way in which they imagine their country, the way in which they narrate their country, the way in which they memorize their country, the way in which they artistically and culturally reproduce their country, everything got changed. So, what does it mean to be a Palestinian in a post Nakba period? What does it mean to be a Palestinian today? These are two important questions that we need to pronounce at this time. So during after 1948, we could see that there was a massive influx of literary as well as cultural productions, and people started their literary engagement. And during 1948 and after, it was a period of fiction for them. Fiction was most powerful mode of literary engagement for them, and through their fictions, they echoed their maybe national. They tried to echo their national identity. They also focused on their the destructions caused by Nakba, the massive the fleeing of people from their own land to the refugee camps and the neighboring countries, especially into Lebanon and some of the other neighboring countries. So these were the major themes in the writings of those period. But what we observe from 1980 onwards, there is, when we think about research about the cultural as well as visual and artistic productions of Palestine, we can see that the art, visual cultures and cultural productions, even the paintings and the murals, and even graffiti, these kind of artistic and visual productions, cultural productions of Palestinians became quite popular from 1980s onwards. Because more people, especially youth, women, and even young children, and people of different religions, even Muslims, even Christians, they came into a kind of an engagement with art and culture, engagement with art and literature. So for them, unless until 1980s, we can see that literary productions were also somewhat reserved, just like in the case of the development of any country with respect to the literary and cultural productions. We can see that until 1980, there were literatures, wonderful literatures were created, even women writers were there. But at the same time, from 1980 onwards, we can see a kind of definitely a galvanization in many ways, reading, artistic productions, visual productions, and again, so art, culture, literary engagement became these three mode of powerful productions became one of the compulsory component in the life of every Palestinian to some extent. And thematically also there are changes. As I have mentioned, in the earliest form of literary productions during the pre-Nakba period and immediately after the post-Nakba period, gender was one of the major themes. Patriarchy, as well as maybe the division of labor and such things were the major themes. But now from 1980 onwards, when we understand that for them, their geographical existence, the question of their land, the question of their existence, the question of their the political identity, the cultural identity, and their everyday life, the meaninglessness of everyday life, or instead their sumud. Sumud, the Arabic word sumud stands for their steadfastness, their willpower. So there's a change. Thematically, there are changes, and again, visually, there are changes. More Palestinians became into artistic kinds of work, producing graffiti, producing paintings, conducting certain kinds of art exhibitions, starting some art schools, and having some there are Ramallah based art galleries are there. Recently there was an exhibition at Dubai conducted by a Ramallah based art gallery. So we can understand that Palestinians are Palestinians started to change. From 1980 onwards, there are powerful modes of literary and cultural and visual productions from Palestinians, and they are outstanding also. They have global standards, and in the mode of narration, in the mode of production, in the quality of their production, in their critical reception, in all the aspects, they are outstanding one, and they invite global attention also.
Yeah, and as you mentioned that women were also a major part of these literary productions. So can you, especially in terms of novels, so can you speak a bit about the issues and voices of Palestinian women in culture as well?
Sure, sure. Well, as you have rightly mentioned, that was one of the focus areas of my research. I had particularly worked on 16 women writers uh, located in various areas of Palestine. So I focused on their geographical locations, and my major focus was how do they narrate their country through their literary works. And I had focused on the women writers living in Gaza, in West Bank, in East Jerusalem, in Ramallah, in Jaffa, and in some of the refugee camps, even in Israel and in Lebanon, as well as in some of the other countries, just like a diasporic Palestinian women writers. They do live in America and in some of the other countries. And we can say that from, as I have mentioned, from 1980s onwards, women are more into literature as well as cultural and artistic productions. And rather than the age-old themes, just like maybe gender and such kinds of themes, and I could observe that they are, for them, writing and cultural and literary productions are more powerful kinds of political identity, creating their political identity. And what they do is they are turning their everyday life into their literature. Even speaking about everyday life is a political activity for them, and speaking about their the maybe the day-to-day confrontation with the military army, day-to-day existence, occupation, the stories of occupation, and maybe their means of everyday life, everything they are turning into their literature. And what I have observed is women, rather than the maybe grown-up women, young women do write. There is a particular book called Gaza Writes Back, and even title is very emblematic kind of title, because now they have started writing. Now they have started questioning these confrontation and occupation through their literatures. They are writing back. They are questioning their authority, the Israeli authority. And so Gaza Writes Back is actually a story collection written by 20 plus writers, and most of the writers are young women writers based in Gaza. And even their act of education, their job, maybe the certain kind of mm, certain kinds of military confrontation that has become the part of everyday life for them, and the occupation in various kinds of ways. How the Israeli military the military agency is trying to grab the land grabbing, a kind of Judaization and Zionization. All these things have become major themes in their writing. I can tell you some examples. There is a powerful book by Fatma Qasim. She is an Israeli-based Palestinian writer. And in one of her works titled Palestinian Women, what she has done is she has interviewed many women who have experienced Nakba in person. So she is trying to reproduce the stories, the oral stories of these women, and she has interviewed more than 20 women, and she has reproduced the stories of these women in her work, in her research work. And the research work has been published in the form of a book titled Palestinian Women. And these women tell the story. These women are women of 60 and 70 years old and 70 plus years old. And through the form of oral stories or oral histories, and Fatma Qasim was trying to reproduce the actual story of Nakba, how they have lost their land and how far they have become totally a second class citizen or an indifferent person in the land of Israel. These women are located in Israel, Palestinians, but they became the second class citizens once there was Nakba. Most of their kith and kin, their relatives became the part of runaways or refugees. So some of them were locked up inside the Israel, not actually Israel, the Palestine, but became the Israel. Okay, so they do tell us the stories of Nakba and what was experienced in Nakba for them, and the pain of the memory, and the pain of losing their own relatives, the pain of becoming completely a refugee in their own land by a single night. So that was a very powerful, a kind of shocking memory for Fatma Qasim to narrate all these things. And from there, so we can see that Palestinian writers, they are trying to reproduce the stories of Nakba in the form of memoirs, in the form of diary notes, in the form of certain kinds of fictions and non-fictions, essays and all. And from there, we can see that there is another book called Today My Name is Palestine. And it has been written by a very young girl, and her name is Rafa Baker, I think. Yes. Well, and what she has done is she is giving us some tweet collections during the time of war, from maybe in 2005, I think. During the time of war, how what she's experiencing, she's tweeting at the same time. So they are using the digital resources as well as the digital medium to tell the story of their everyday life. So what I've told is from a group of women who were telling the story of Nakba, they were trying to orally reproduce their own history. They have traversed a lot. So women, they have been trying to reproduce the stories of their everyday life through the various powerful media, even the digital medium. So we can see such women also. Young women, as I've mentioned, young women have been started to write, have been writing a lot about their Palestinian life. And there is another work called Gaza Mama. Gaza Mama is a work written by Leila Al Haddad. She is a Gazan-based media person, and she lives in America also. She is shuttling between Gaza and America. For them, for Leila Al Haddad, uh, she is she is telling the everyday story in the form of media narrations, reporting, and these reports have been compiled in the form of a book called Gaza Mama. So so for her, actually, reporting is a means of political existence, being a media person. And for the most of the other writers, their short stories are means of existence for them. And for another writer called Suad Amiri, she is a Ramallah-based Palestinian writer. I'm just giving you some examples to show that there are variations. There are very powerful means of literary productions from Palestinian women, especially I'm giving the examples of the living writers, and they have been taken different kinds of mediums for their artistic and literary creations. And this Wad Amiri has written a lot of books and especially memoirs rather than fictions. Non-fictions are quite popular. And in one of her works titled Sharon and My Mother-in-Law, she gives us plenty of examples of her day-to-day life. And the work has been the work was published in 2005, and it is written in the background of Palestinian war. And she speaks about one of her uh, non-governmental organization called REWAC. REWAC is an agency for the the preservation of monuments in Palestine. And she is particularly engaged with this agency called REWOC. And what they are trying to do is they are trying to preserve the monuments. They are trying to preserve the historical monuments. And she gives us some experiences when she was trying to drive through Ramallah, drive through West Bank, as part of this job. What she could see is most of the monuments have been destructed. Most of the places have been reshaped into some other a different kind of location, a different kind of geography, and militarization was going on. And some of the places, including her hometown, the place where her house was situated, she is making a journey to that place. What she could see was certain some stones only. The house was lost, and along with the houses, the memories are also losing. And when they lose their memory, the Israeli authority is very consciously trying to wipe out all the memories. And what they are doing is they are preserving their memories. They are trying to memorize. They are trying to actually narrate all these things, their memories, to preserve their memory and to preserve their history. So for them, that itself is a political act. So from the fictions, they have traversed a lot to the members, and from the members again, they are traversing to the activism through literature, activism through cultural works, activism through visual as well as cultural and literary productions. And there are young writers, even women writers, they are using this new technology, just like tweet as well as blogging and reporting, live reporting. All these have been used as a medium, powerful medium for their literary and cultural productions. So why I have given all these examples? Because there are women writers there are women writers from Palestine as well as Palestinian women writers living in all the other part of the world. For them, we can see that literature as well as cultural productions are means of their political existence, their political activism. They are powerful means of telling the world that we do exist. Let me just narrate two lines for you. There is a very powerful Palestinian Canadian poet, Palestinian Canadian poet. Her name is uh, Rafif Ziada. Yes, she lives in London. In one of her poems, the poems are quite familiar, quite popular in digital space. Also, she tell us she recites some lines. She says that we teach life. We Palestinians teach life. We Palestinians tell the stories of their everyday life to the rest of the world. And the poem concludes in a very beautiful way. I can just tell you. Yeah. Yes. Let me just recite some lines for you. We teach life, sir. We Palestinians teach life after they have occupied the last sky. The poem ends in this way. We Palestinians wake up every morning to tell the rest of the world life, sir. So this is actually happening. They are teaching us what their life is. For that, they have taken different modes of cultural and literary productions. It can be poems, it can be fiction, it can be novel, it can be short fiction, it can be short story, it can be a combination of tweets, it can be some live reporting, it can be certain kinds of political activism in the form of NGOs preserving their memories, preserving their buildings, monuments, their homes. Maybe the settlement is continuously happening. Day by day, settlement is continuing. They can only do, what they can only do is they can only document all their life, their memory, their history through their literature and other cultural and artistic productions.
Right. And as you stated that a lot of these cultural productions and artistic productions are becoming increasingly popular. So, like, given the current onslaught, a global wave of opinion has shifted in favor of Palestine, despite media blackouts and disinformation. So, can literature and cultural intervention overall pose a challenge to the global forms of oppression or violence in terms of challenging the discourse and status quo?
All right. Okay. Definitely. I'm very optimistic about it. Though the everyday stories are, in a way, highly pessimistic, we are all uh, very eagerly we are listening to them to listen to some the stories of care, compassion, love, existence, and all. Uh, the reversal is happening. That's a reality. But at the same time, being a researcher uh, in the field of Palestinian literature, Palestinian art, culture, and the other cultural landscape of Palestine, I'm very optimistic to see that for them, uh, what they are trying to do through their literature is actually a kind of de-memoricide. I do say that de-memoricide. Memoricide is, as we all see, a forceful killing of their memories. And de-memoricide is a word used by one of the critics called Noor Masalha in one of his books. And what does he say is the Israeli authority, especially the Zionist authorities, are engaged with killing their memories, killing the Palestinian memories in multiple fashions, killing the memory of their land, killing the memory of their houses, their kith and kin, their golden memories of pre-Nakba Palestine, and even their existence with their own existence in their own land, even yeah, killing their memories with killing the memories of their own association with the land. I can tell you one example. There is a story called L for Land. It is written by Sarah Ali. Sarah Ali is also a Gazan-based writer. And in her story, she there is an incident. She asked her father about his olive trees. The father was very panic, and he is just reproducing the names of the numbers of olive trees and the number of olive trees destructed by the Israeli bulldozers. And at one time, when she just mentioned the number of trees, wasn't it these number of olive trees? The father becomes very panic, and he pronounces the number of olive trees destructed by the Israeli authority. So even the number of olive trees destructed uh, itself is very powerful memory for every Palestinian. And in this context, what Israel can do is, I mean, apart from these kind of bomb shower and all these things, so along with that, simultaneously, what happens is their memories and association with land is always collapsed. Okay, so they are killing the memories, and what Palestinians are doing is it's an act of de-memoricide, or in a way memorizing, a memorization, or again remembering. So remembering is a very political kind of act in which every Palestinian artist and literary person is engaged with. So uh, memory is a form of resistance for them, and when they are memorizing the names of the places through their literatures, when they are just producing their graffiti on the wall uh, about their historic past and maybe about their day-to-day life, they are registering their life itself. So the rest of the world can understand what the life for a Palestinian is. And there is one incident, I wish to tell you one incident. This Palestinian writer, as I've mentioned, Fatma Qasim, in her books Palestinian Women, give us an idea about the pre-Nakba story. And in her journey through Israel, through the land of Israel, the present day Israel, not actually Israel, the present day Israel, the one once it was Palestine. And she asked one of her interviewer about Salah al Street. She says that I want to go to Salah al Street, Salah al Din Street, Salah al Din Street. Okay, and the woman laughs. It was a bitter laugh. Okay, and the woman says that when you are in search of Salah al Din Street, you cannot find it. They call it Herzl Street. They have renamed the place. And this is another kind of act of Israeli agency. They are renaming the places. They are actually wiping out all the memories. So various kinds of Judaization process is going on. Ilan Papi, a revisionist historian from Israel, Israeli revisionist historian, has very beautifully spoken about all these things in his book, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine. So what they are doing is a kind of ethnic cleansing, a genocide. So ethnic cleansing of Palestinian work in various ways: killing of the land, killing of olive trees, killing of the memories, killing the relationships. So, what Palestinian literary as well as cultural people are doing is they are preserving that. They are preserving their memories. They are on an act of keeping all these memories afresh so that at least through that they can tell the rest of the world and every Palestinian that we are these people. We have these treasures. We have our land. We have our kith and kin. So they are highly optimistic. At the same time, they are showing the resistance also. So in their resistance, we can see that there is optimism. So to write is to exist. To write is to resist, as well as to do their graffiti and artistic work is also a powerful means of essence that will be turned into a powerful existence as a proud citizen. So such kind of a memory is very beautifully shared by her.
Yes, thank you so much for all of the beautiful insights that you've shared with us, especially about the Palestinian art, literature, and the culture. Jazakallah khair once again for being with us and for giving us your precious time. And I hope many of the viewers will find this useful because I certainly have. Jazakallah khair once again.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Indeed, I feel like uh, people have maybe literary world have already understood the power of Palestinian words, the power of Palestinian paintbrush. At the same time, we need to popularize that because global literatures, researchers, as well as academicians and activists, even the artists, as well as the historians, uh, they need to give more focus for Palestinian art, visual and cultural productions, and these writers, women writers, young writers, male, female, uh, writers belonging to different religions, they are powerfully trying to tell us that we are on a particular cause. We are for the Palestinian cause through our literature and culture. And only when we try to echo their voices in the form of researchers, in the form of these discourses and deliberations, uh, definitely that's a means of uh, giving them voice. We are also on a mission of voicing the Palestine, voicing their resistance, voicing their cultural and literary productions, through which we can believe that they will be able to produce their own human stories, the stories of compassion and care from them. We need to listen to such kinds of stories from every Palestinian. The young Palestinian children should not be always exposed to these hate stories, but instead the world have to the world the all the countries and people have to gift them that kind of a world. And Palestine is actually a geographical territory only. They are nowhere. They are not in the refugee map. They are not in the map of the world. And actually, they are not refugees. Why should we call them refugees? They are not refugees. There are Palestinians who live as refugees outside Palestine. they had to run away. At the same time, the Palestinians inside Palestine, in the occupied territories, Gaza, West Bank, all the other places, even in Israel, they are living, these people are living in their own land, but they have missed their land. So we must be, somehow, we must be the voice for them in order to have their proud citizenship in their own country. So we believe that, particularly, we believe that all these kinds of the global mode of there are, even in London, I could see that there were a lot of protests from the student community, from the academic community, from the public, and there are such kinds of protests right now from all over the world. So we believe that the authority could not shut their eyes, and immediately uh, the peace must be fulfilled, and the peace is to be established, and every Palestinian should be free. They should be the liberated proud citizens in their own country, with access to all the means of their day-to-day life. So we believe that, inshallah, that will be fulfilled, and this itself will be a kind of noble vision in that cause, I expect. Thank you for the opportunity. I believe that let the researchers and let the activism continue in its own way, as well as in various other modes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shahina.